Okay, the perfect steak. Now, steak is one of those things that most people love and do regularly, and you'd be amazed how many people struggle with it. Oh, my steak's tough, it never really tastes as good as in the restaurants and stuff like that. Let's fix that. First of all, get yourself good beef, good steak. Fillet, sirloin, rump, ribeye, go to good supermarkets or butchers. Talk to your butcher. Getting it hung, 21 days is a really good time to get your meat hung. That means it's been hung in an environment where it gets more tender, juicy and tasty. Also, there's a few little things that I do to make sure it cooks beautiful every time. So over here, I've got two methods of cooking. I've got the straight pan frying method in here, right? It's just a pan, non-stick. And then I've got a griddle pan, which gives you those kind of bar marks, very much like a barbecue. Now, obviously I'm not doing barbecue in here, but barbecue is the holy grail. You've got the smoke and you've got the fat dripping off and giving you extra flavor in smoke. So obviously I'm not teaching you that today, but the same principle works for all three methods. So these pans have been heating up for 5 minutes. You don't want to boil steak or poach steak. You want to fry steak. You want to caramelize color and flavor. So they've been on for 5 minutes. They're screaming hot. The window is open. The fan, if I had one, would be on, right? And all I do is season the steak here with sea salt, like that. Pepper. Steaks just love pepper, so you can be fairly generous. A little olive oil. And then just use a pair of tongs just to smear that in like that, and then you can turn it over and do the same on the other side. Now the other thing is this, supermarkets tend to cut their steaks really, really thin. That's a problem because it's very hard to get good colour, which is good flavour, and have it medium or medium rare. So going to the butcher's or a supermarket and asking for your steak to be about 1 inch thick, it helps you so much more. Salt on the other side. With sea salt, it looks like more than it is, but it gives good flavour. Pepper again, and olive oil again. Now this is a big kind of misconception that you have to put loads of olive oil and butter in the pan, because the first thing it's going to do is burn, and it's not going to give you particularly good flavour. So I'm just literally tossing the steak in the seasoning and the oil on the plate. There's nothing in these pans here, and then I'm going to move it over to the pan and put it straight in, dry heat. That way your pan's not full of oil. Just lightly pat it down. Same on the other one. And the way I want to cook it is cook it evenly on each side. So about 1 minute each side, and just keep turning it and cooking it until it's cooked to your liking. And I'm going to talk to you later about how you kind of get your head around how it's cooked. Medium, medium rare, well done, etc, etc. Now while that's cooking, over here I've got a few fillet steaks that I've marinated in a little bit of garlic, rosemary, lemon zest, olive oil. You can see how to make that in the pestle and mortar video. And these have been marinating for like 3 or 4 hours. You know, that's a good sort of time for a fillet steak like this, little medallions. If you had a bigger lump of beef for roasting, you can do it overnight, 6-7 hours. I'm going to cook these in the pan over here. So I'm going to give it a little bit of salt. Straight over. You can shake off. The marinade's done its work now, so you can shake that marinade off. Now these medallions, these are much smaller, so they're going to cook in a fraction of the time. Bit of seasoning on top. And the idea is that you don't have any meat touching each other. If the meat's touching each other, it's going to create steam, which then is going to cause your meat to boil or steam instead of fry. So the sirloin's here about 1 minute. Look at that. You can see the fat dancing on the top. That's exactly what we're looking for. Pat the meat down so it's all touching. There you go. Now that's proper cooking. You can see you've got caramelisation there. You're building up flavour, character. Also, you're cooking the meat quickly so that if you do want it medium or medium rare, or even blue, it's going to be tender inside. Let's go to the fillet steaks here. Little medallions. So I could literally cook that for another 30 seconds. Literally 1 minute on each side would be medium rare. 1.5 minutes on each side would be about just under medium. 2 minutes on each side, and that's a rough estimate. There's two ways of telling how your meat is cooked. One is to tear or cut into it and have a look, and the other way is to get a sense of touch. Now, the sense of touch is an interesting one. I've got a little technique here that kind of works 80%, which is pretty good as a guide. So if you touch your thumb and forefinger and just feel that little piece of muscle there on your own body, that is basically like medium rare, right? If you touch this finger, your third finger and your thumb together and feel it, it tenses up a little bit. And that's a bit like, edging towards medium. If you do that, medium well, do that, well done. And that's if you just get used to that touch, and then when you come over here and you touch it, you get a really good kind of comparison. You can kind of imagine how that meat's cooking. So it's a good, when you're cooking steaks, you've got to use your instincts. So these fillet steaks are definitely done now. They'll be about medium, just blushing inside. Now, everyone talks about resting, letting your meat rest. And the idea of this, for a little fillet steak like this, let it rest for a minute and a half. There's no need to give it much time. A little bit of olive oil on top like that. And what you're going to get come out of your steaks is a beautiful mix of juices mixing with the flavour of the marinade and also the good quality olive oil. Now, you can let it rest for a minute here, and then what you can do is serve it up on a plate and pour those juices over the top. Back to this pan here, it's had another minute and a bit here. I'm just going to turn it over. What's quite good if you're using the griddle pan is put the fatty side here against the pan, because no one really in their right mind wants to eat sort of raw fat. You want it to be rendered, caramelised. Now, with a nice thick steak like this, there's a couple of things you can do for extra flavour. Get yourself some rosemary sticks, right? Get yourself a garlic clove, cut it in half, and get yourself just a little bit of butter. If you take a knob of butter like that off, what you can do is go with your garlic and rub it on the top like that. You might think that it won't make any difference, but it really will. And then get a piece of butter and just literally give it one little rub like that on the top, and then rosemary. Just pat it with rosemary. I know it looks like it wouldn't make any difference, but it really will. It's going to bring out the best and the most fragrant of the garlic and the rosemary. Let's turn the baby, and we do it again. While it's sizzling with fat like that, pat it with the rosemary. Just rub it with that gnarly bit of garlic. You can even smell it. And rub it with that little bit of butter around here. That's good now. Onto a plate for resting. Because this is a bigger bit of meat, we can let that rest for about 3 or 4 minutes. Just put it down there. I want to just explain this last part of steak action. So if we look at the medallions here, we can see the natural juices have come out. So this is what I want to do. We can just take this up here. I would normally just serve it just like this. But to kind of get an idea of what's happened inside the steak, you can just cut it at an angle, and you can see beautiful and blushy. That's kind of perfect medium for me. If you wanted it less, you obviously cook it for less time. Like that. But also, what's left in here, that is gold. That is what's going to make your steak absolutely incredible. So mix it up. It's like almost like kind of marbling, right? Have a taste. The smallest squeeze of lemon juice, literally like 6 drips. Shake that with all that lovely olive oil, even a knob of butter if you want, and pour that over your steak, and you will not regret doing that. That is going to be awesome. Let's do exactly the same with our sirloins here. These should be slightly rarer. So with this baby here, just going to slice up the sirloin like that again. You can get back to your lovely plate and take your steak and literally just lay it out like that. Cook medium again, nice and blushing. Look at that. It'll be delicious. And then the other thing to remember The other thing to remember is those resting juices again, all of those juices. You'd be amazed the amount of people that get rid of that. You can also use a little butter in there as well, that sweetens it right up, and then get those lovely juices and pour them over once more. Beautiful. So there you go, there's the principles of really good steak cooking. Hot pan, marinade in the plate, not oil in the pan, let it rest, juices, and really work on getting that flavour on the outside of the steak with the garlic, rosemary and the butter. Good luck.